Hey everyone, and welcome to another Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we are looking at one of the greatest intellectual mysteries of the modern world. We're talking about the very blueprint of human behavior, the actual science of society itself. For centuries now, we've all been taught a very specific story about who created this science and exactly where it came from. But what if the textbooks got it wrong? Or, at the very least, what if they completely missed a genius who was literally 500 years ahead of his time? Okay, let's dive into this. So who really invented this study of us? It's a massive question, right? As focus learners, you and I both love a good origin story, finding the true architectural masterminds behind how we understand human behavior. Well, it isn't just about giving credit where it's due. It actually changes how we view the discipline itself. Are we looking at a straight, uninterrupted line of Western scientific progress? Or is it more like a global cycle of forgotten knowledge? All right, just so we're all starting on exactly the same page here, let's quickly define our terms. Sociology is, at its core, the scientific study of society. It looks at social phenomena, the deep structures that bind us together, cultural patterns, and all the messy dynamics of human behavior. Basically, it's the lens we use to understand everything from how a family operates to why entire empires collapse. Now, the discipline of sociology is incredibly vast, like really vast. And because of that, it's kind of gathered a bunch of fathers over the years for its different branches. You have Karl Marx, who is largely considered the father of political sociology for his deep focus on class struggle. Then there's Emil Durkheim and Max Weber, the fathers of educational sociology. Oh, and we also have Govind Sadashiv-Gurria, the undisputed father of Indian sociology, thanks to his brilliant pluralistic methods. But while these giants founded crucial branches, today we're hunting for the original founder of the entire root system. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, defining the science of society. Second, Comte, the official father. Third, Khaldun, the forgotten founder. Then, comparing the sociological giants. And finally, Spencer, a cautionary tale.
Part 1. Defining the science of society.
Let's actually take a close look at the official birth certificate of this academic discipline. The word sociology itself first appeared back in 1838. It's basically a mashup, combining the Latin word socius, meaning companion, and the Greek logia, meaning the study of. The man who coined it wanted to aggressively push back against guesswork, conjecture, and superstition. He wanted a rigorous, hard-hitting, evidence-based science of society. He called this principle positivism. Part 2. Comte, the official father. So, Auguste Comte. He's widely accepted as the official founder of modern sociology. His approach was completely revolutionary for the time, but, also highly controversial. Take a listen to this quote from his work. The scientific spirit forbids us to regard society as composed of individuals. The true social unit is the family. Comte fiercely argued that individualistic approaches are just doomed to fail. To him, society wasn't just a collection of random people bumping into each other. It was an organism. The family is the basic cell, which then grows into tribes and eventually into nations. And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply Comte leaned into that whole biological metaphor. He actually divided this brand new science into two distinct areas. First up, social statics. Think of this like the anatomy of a society. It's the study of order and harmony, looking at what literally holds us together, primarily things like shared language, religion, and the division of labor. Second, he proposed social dynamics. This is more like the physiology of society, focusing on how we actually move, progress, and evolve over time. This whole biological approach builds right into his most famous theory, the law of three stages. Comte honestly believed every single society must evolve through this specific, rigid progression. First, the theological stage, where everything is explained by religion. Second, the metaphysical stage, which relies more on philosophical inquiry. And finally, the ultimate goal, the positive stage, which is characterized entirely by empirical and scientific understanding. It's a very linear, forward-marching view of human progress. But, behind all this strict, rational framework was a deeply, deeply troubled genius. Did you know that in 1826, Comte actually escaped a mental health facility? Yeah, and the very next year, he survived a suicide attempt by jumping off a bridge in Paris. It's a stark reminder that the people who build these monumental intellectual frameworks are very often battling intense personal chaos behind the scenes. He built a science of order, while his own life was in severe disorder. Part 3. Khaldun, the forgotten founder. Now, if the story ended with Comte, well, he'd be the undisputed father, right? But let's completely pivot to a revisionist history mystery. Meet the absolute brilliant Tunisian polymath, Ibn Khaldun. Way back in the year 1377, he offered a monumental work called the Muqaddimah. In it, he laid out the foundations for a discipline he called Ilm al-Umran, which translates directly to the science of society. He noted that human beings have this unique social orientation. Our biology makes us incredibly weak when we're alone, which absolutely forces us to cooperate just to survive, secure food, and defend ourselves. So the crucial point here is how exactly Khaldun explains what keeps these cooperating humans from just turning on each other and falling apart. He introduced this amazing concept called asabiya. It translates to social solidarity or a really strong group feeling. Khaldun argued that asabiya is the absolute bedrock of any state. The stronger the asabiya, the firmer the foundations of the society. It's literally the glue. But unlike Comte's straight upward line of endless scientific progress, Khaldun observed that human history is actually a loop. He mapped out this brilliant 120-year cycle of a civilization's inevitable rise and fall across 3 distinct generations. Generation 1, they're the tough builders with massive asabiya who conquer and build the state. Generation 2 inherits all this wealth, they become sedentary, they start preferring luxury, and the social bond starts to weaken. By Generation 3, the rulers are entirely decadent and negligent. The asabiya completely collapses and the state is overthrown by a hungry new group, starting the cycle all over again. Part 4. Comparing the sociological giants. Putting these 2 titans head-to-head, we see 2 entirely different lenses looking at the exact same human condition. Comte, in the 19th century, is highly focused on positivism. He views society as this organism that just marches confidently forward toward an ultimate scientific order. Khaldun, on the other hand, in the 14th century, relies on stark empirical observations of resource struggles, group solidarity, and the sober reality that all empires eventually rot from the inside out and fall. One saw a ladder, the other saw a wheel, but they were both fundamentally engaging in pure sociology. And finally, Part 5, Spencer, a cautionary tale. So we have an official father and a forgotten co-founder. But for our final act, I really want to introduce you to a third father from the 19th century. And I'm doing this to show you just how incredibly fragile intellectual legacy actually is. This is Herbert Spencer. During his lifetime, he was a venerated intellectual giant. Like, he was an acclaimed educator whose fame and influence rivaled and, in some circles, completely exceeded Auguste Comte's. He helped shape the very emergence of sociology. But today, he has fallen into profound historical oblivion. The historian Jerzy Szaki actually wrote something absolutely devastating about Spencer. He noted that we rarely witness such a deep, massive contrast between the successes achieved by a thinker in their lifetime and the infamy they fall into after death. He wrote, and I quote, "True, the sociologists acknowledge him as one of the founders of their discipline, but all they find in his works is a warning about how not to pursue it. Man, it is a harsh, harsh reality of academia. Remaining scientifically relevant is just ruthless." Which brings us to the end of today's explainer, and leaves us with a pretty provocative question to chew on. Think about how you view the origins of the things you study. Does a massive discipline like the science of society really have just one father? Or is human knowledge exactly what Ibn Khaldun described? A collective, constantly evolving cycle where ideas are born, forgotten, and then magically rediscovered centuries later. It really makes you wonder what future generations will think of the quote-unquote facts we hold so dear today. Thank you so much for learning with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.